My doorbell camera caught a ghost at 2 a.m. Scary true story. What would you do if your doorbell camera caught something you couldn't explain? Something that wasn't just a person, but something else? A face staring back at you through the lens. But here's the twist, it wasn't just on your screen, it was standing right behind you. This is the terrifying true story of how a simple motion detected notification turned into a nightmare that followed me into the dark corners of my own home. It was just another quiet Tuesday night. I had wrapped up work late, made myself a bowl of cereal, and was binge watching some old horror flicks before bed. Nothing out of the ordinary. Just me, my blanket, and a bit of background spookiness to help me fall asleep. Around 1:55 a.m., I was finally starting to doze off on the couch when my phone buzzed. I thought it was a late night text or maybe an email, but when I checked, it was a motion alert from my doorbell camera. That wasn't too weird. Sometimes a stray cat or raccoon sets it off, but this time something felt different. The thumbnail preview showed a blurry figure standing just outside my front door, tall, still, almost human. Curious but half asleep, I tapped the notification to open the live feed. My screen loaded with static for a moment, then cleared. The front porch looked empty. I blinked, rewound the footage by 30 seconds, and what I saw made my skin crawl. There was someone or something standing completely motionless at the very edge of the porch light. You could barely make out a face, or what should have been a face. It looked pale, hollow, like it was drained of life. Then, just as the camera started to adjust for better clarity, it vanished. No footsteps, no walking away, just gone. I sat up, heart thudding in my chest. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't an animal. I'd never seen anything like it. And the scariest part? The camera had picked up no sound at all. I stared at my phone screen for what felt like forever, trying to make sense of what I'd just seen. I rewound the footage again, hit play, slowed it down, paused it frame by frame. The figure was there, clearly visible for about 5 seconds, not moving, not blinking, just standing at the edge of the porch light like it was waiting. The shape was off, too tall, too thin. It looked like a man, but something about the proportions felt wrong. Its arms hung stiff at its sides, and the head was tilted ever so slightly, like it was listening for something. Then, gone, just like before. One frame it was there, the next it wasn't. I checked the live feed again. Still nothing. Porch light on. Street completely empty. I thought about opening the door to check, but something in my gut told me not to. Something about the silence, the stillness outside, felt unnatural. I tapped into the audio timeline. The entire recording was quiet. No footsteps, no wind, not even the usual hum of passing cars. Then I noticed something else. A soft click, almost like a whisper or a breath, right before the figure disappeared. It was barely audible, like someone exhaling right next to the mic. I played it again. Click. A faint breath, then silence. My skin erupted in goosebumps. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't dreaming. Something had been at my door, and I had a feeling it wasn't the last time. Sleep was no longer an option. My hands were shaking, my heart thudding in my chest like a warning drum. I backed out of the camera app, locked my phone, and just sat there on the couch staring at my front door. I live in a pretty quiet neighborhood, just rows of similar looking houses with motion activated porch lights and trimmed hedges. No crime, no drama. Nothing ever happens here. Except now, something had. After about 10 minutes of frozen silence, I convinced myself to get up and check the lock. I crept to the front door and pressed my ear against it. Nothing. No breathing. No footsteps. Just the distant hum of a street lamp flickering in the distance. I slowly turned the deadbolt to make sure it was locked twice. Still, something felt off. You know that eerie feeling when you know someone's watching you, that heavy pressure on the back of your neck, like invisible eyes are glued to you. Yeah, that. I walked back to the living room, phone in hand, and sat down to review the clip one more time. I enlarged the video and zoomed in on the figure's face, or at least what should have been a face. It wasn't right. It wasn't human. There were no eyes, just deep sunken sockets. No nose, no mouth, just a faint impression of features, like someone had smudged a drawing of a person into a foggy mirror. The skin, if you could call it that, was translucent, almost glowing under the porch light. But then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Behind the figure, in the corner of the screen, barely visible in the shadows, was another shape, smaller, closer to the ground, like someone or something was crouching just behind it. I hadn't seen it before. It was too far back in the darkness. I tapped on the brightness slider and cranked it up. The smaller shape had a face too, except this time the face was looking directly into the camera. Wide eyes, a crooked grin, like it knew I was watching. I jumped and dropped the phone. It hit the floor with a thud. This wasn't just a glitch. This wasn't a trick of the light. There were two of them, and they had both been at my front door. I stared at my phone on the floor, afraid to pick it up. It was lying face down, screen still glowing against the hardwood. That image was burned into my brain. The second face, the twisted smile, the way it looked straight into the lens, like it could see me through it. After a few deep breaths, I knelt down and picked the phone back up. My fingers were trembling, but I tapped the screen again. The video had paused on the very frame I had left off. The smaller figure crouched in the shadows, grinning, still. I played it forward a few more seconds, hoping the camera had caught them walking away. It hadn't. Both figures just disappeared. Not together, not in motion. One frame, they were there. The next, nothing. As if the air had swallowed them whole. That's when it hit me. I hadn't checked the rest of the footage. The doorbell cam had a rolling 2-hour memory cycle. If anything had approached the house before or after that clip, it would still be there. I scrolled back through the timeline. 1:30 a.m., nothing. 1:45 a.m., quiet. 1:53 a.m., motion detected. That was the clip with the tall figure and the crouching one. But then 2:04 a.m., another alert. I didn't remember seeing that one before. My stomach dropped. I tapped it open. At first, everything looked the same. The porch was empty, the camera facing forward, street lights flickering in the distance. Then I noticed something strange. The camera had tilted. Just slightly, but enough to catch the reflection in the side window of my door. There was movement, something small, darting past the window from the inside. I paused, rewound, played it again. There it was, a shadow moving inside the house. I stood up so fast I nearly knocked over the coffee table. My head snapped toward the hallway leading to the kitchen. The house was dead silent, but I couldn't ignore the tightening in my chest, the creeping realization. Whatever had been on my porch might not have stayed outside. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a heavy candle holder, and started walking slowly toward the kitchen. Step by step, the floorboards creaked under my feet. I rounded the corner, empty. But the back door, the one that leads to the yard, was unlocked and wide open. My breath caught in my throat. The back door, one I always kept locked, was wide open, swaying gently like someone had just passed through. The cold night air slipped inside, brushing past me like invisible fingers. I hadn't opened that door. I know I hadn't. I stepped closer, candle holder raised like a weapon, and nudged the door shut with my foot. It clicked back into the frame, but the feeling that something was wrong didn't go away. In fact, it got worse. That hallway behind me, the one that led to my bedroom, felt heavier. Not darker, but heavier, like the air had thickened, like the silence itself had grown teeth. Then I heard it. A sound so faint, I wasn't even sure it was real. A whisper. One word. Hey. I froze. I didn't imagine it. It wasn't the wind. It was inside the house. Close. I turned, slowly, and stared down the hallway. My bedroom door was cracked open, just slightly. A sliver of black on black. Shouldn't have been. I always closed it tight when I left the room. Hello? I said, instantly regretting it. No answer. I took one cautious step forward. The wooden floor creaked. Another step, then another. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else. I was about to reach for the doorknob when something moved. Inside the room. Quick. Like a shadow ducking out of sight. That's when my phone buzzed again. I jumped, nearly dropping the candle holder. I glanced down. Motion detected. Front door camera. 2:08 a.m. I hesitated for a moment, then tapped it open. The video started. The porch was empty again. But then, the front door handle slowly turned. Not the door, just the handle. Back and forth. Jiggle. Jiggle. Like someone on the other side was trying to get in, or trying to remind me they already had. I stared at the screen, my mouth dry. The doorknob turned one last time, and then the figure appeared again, this time right up against the lens. Just pale skin, blank eyes, and that same awful stretched grin. Then the feed is cut to static. I stood frozen in my hallway, staring at the static on my phone screen. My pulse thudded in my ears, louder than my own thoughts. The image of that thing, its face pressed so close to the camera you could almost feel its breath, was now seared into my brain. I lowered my phone slowly and turned my eyes back toward the bedroom door. It was still ajar. Something had moved inside. Everything in me screamed run, but some twisted part of me needed to see, to know if this nightmare was real or just a trick of fear and half sleep. I pushed the door open. The room was dim, lit only by the glow of the street lamp outside. Nothing seemed out of place at first glance. My bed, my dresser, the nightstand. The window was locked, but then I noticed it. The closet door. It was open about a foot. I always kept it closed. Always. And worse, I could see the edge of something sticking out. Something dark. Fabric? I stepped inside, candle holder still in my hand, and inched toward the closet. My foot crunched on something. I looked down. A black feather. I stopped. I don't own anything with feathers. The air in the room had changed. It was colder. Still. My breath clouded in front of me, like I'd just stepped outside in winter. The closet door creaked as I got closer. I leaned in, holding my breath, trying to see what was inside without touching anything. It looked empty, but that's when I realized the darkness inside the closet wasn't natural. It was thicker, like it had weight, like it watched back. Then, just as I leaned in an inch too far, something moved. Fast. Low. A blur of black darted deeper into the closet like it had been waiting. I stumbled backward, heart leaping into my throat. I fumbled for the bedroom light switch and flicked it on. The bulb exploded. A loud pop and a flash of light, and the room plunged into darkness again. I turned and bolted out of the room, slamming the door behind me. Then I heard it. From inside the bedroom, 3 slow knocks. Knock, 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 coming from inside the closet. I stood outside my bedroom door, back pressed against the wall, trying to slow my breathing. My heart felt like it was beating in my throat. Every instinct screamed for me to leave the house, but my legs wouldn't move. I was locked in place, paralyzed by those three knocks. So slow, so deliberate, like whatever was in the closet wanted me to hear it. I held my phone like a lifeline, fingers gripping the edges until my knuckles went white. The screen was still cracked from earlier, but I forced it open again and refreshed the doorbell cam. Nothing, just an empty porch, as if that thing had disappeared the moment I looked away. But something didn't feel right. My house is small, one level, two bedrooms, but I live alone. And right now, I didn't feel alone. Then came the sound that made my blood turn to ice. Creak, a floorboard above me. Except there's no upstairs. My house doesn't have a second floor. I looked up instinctively. The ceiling fan above the hallway light swung gently, side to side. Not fast. Not from wind. From movement. Then, creak. Another step. Closer. It was like something heavy was walking just above me, pacing slowly, directly over the hallway. My hallway, where there shouldn't be anything. I took a shaky step backward. Then I heard the stairs. Not actual ones, but the sound of someone stepping downward. Gradually, from nowhere. One step, then another. Then the sound of a foot hitting the tile at the end of the hallway. I turned. Looked. Nothing. Just the dim hallway. And the soft flicker of the kitchen light above the sink. I backed toward the front door, heart hammering, fingers fumbling at the lock. That's when my phone buzzed again. Motion detected, living room camera. 2:14 a.m. Wait. I don't have a camera in the living room. I stared at the notification, confused. Then it clicked. The signal wasn't from my system. It was a feed I had never seen before. A shaky, low-res view of a dimly lit room. And right in the center of the frame was me, standing in my hallway, holding my phone, right now. The video was showing me from behind, and then a pale hand entered the frame, reaching out for me from the shadows. My fingers went numb. The phone almost slipped from my hand as I stared at the screen. The live feed showed me my back, my hallway, everything, exactly how it was in real time. Same lighting, same clothes, same angle. But someone or something was standing behind me in that feed. Not fully visible, just a hand, pale, long fingers curling unnaturally like they didn't belong to a human body, reaching for my shoulder. I spun around, swinging wildly with the candle holder. My lungs seized. I half expected to hit something solid, but there was nothing. No one. Just empty space. I stood frozen, chest heaving, scanning every shadow in the hallway. My walls, my ceiling, my floors, all the same. But that hand, that feed, where had it come from? I quickly backed into the living room, away from the hallway. Still glued to the screen. The feed was still active. Now it showed me retreating. The perspective stayed fixed, like the camera was mounted on the wall behind me, but there was no camera in the house facing that direction. I would have known. I live here. Then the feed flickered, glitched for a second, and just like that, the hand was gone. But something else was in its place. In the far corner of the screen, just behind where I had been standing moments ago, a shape began to form, slow, like something melting into reality. Tall, slender, its face still distorted. That same stretched, smiling expression. Only now, it wasn't just watching. It started moving. In the video, it stepped forward, reaching for the exact spot where I was standing. My real-life body had already moved, but in the video, I hadn't. I watched in horror as the ghostly figure touched the back of my neck. In the feed, I flinched. I hadn't felt it at the time. But somehow it had touched me. I dropped the phone. I couldn't do this anymore. I ran to the front door and yanked it open. The air outside hit me like a slap. Cold, sharp, real. I stepped onto the porch, panting, expecting relief. But it was worse. Across the street, standing just beyond the reach of the nearest streetlight, were two figures, motionless, watching, one tall, one crouched low. Their faces looked familiar because they were the same faces from the video, the ones from my door. They had followed me out, and they weren't alone. I didn't move, couldn't move. The two figures stood across the street like shadows, cut from darker shadows. One unnaturally tall and stiff, the other crouched low, with its limbs sprawled out like an insect. Neither one blinked, neither one breathed. They just watched. The street was dead silent. No cars, no wind, not even the usual hum of the transformer on the corner pole. It was like the entire world had gone still, except for them. I took a step back toward the door. My fingers found the frame. That's when I noticed something new, something wrong. My doorbell camera was recording again. The little red light blinked. Motion detected. I turned slowly to glance at the screen above the doorbell. The live feed was playing, but it wasn't showing the street or the porch. It was showing inside the house, my hallway. But I was outside. I leaned in closer, heart in my throat. And there it was. A third figure, inside my house, standing right in front of my bedroom door. Its back was to the camera, but even from behind I could tell this one was different. Its body was twitching slightly, like it couldn't stay still, like it didn't quite fit in the space it was standing in. The outline shimmered, distorted, like bad static. And then it turned around. There was no face, just a black void where the face should have been. A swirling pit, like a hole in the world. And somehow, it was staring directly at the camera. Suddenly, the live feed glitched again. Then, the front door slammed shut behind me. I jumped, spun around, and saw nothing. The figures across the street were gone, vanished. I jiggled the doorknob, locked from the inside. I pounded on it. No, no, no. Then came a sound I'll never forget. A voice from behind the door, calm, cold, like it wasn't even trying to scare me, because it didn't have to. It simply said, "We're home." And then, just beyond the glass panel, I saw it. That face, the one with no features, looking at me from the inside. My fingers clawed at the doorknob, trying to twist it open, trying anything, but it was like the lock didn't exist anymore. The door wouldn't budge, wouldn't even rattle. It was sealed tight, like the house had decided it didn't want me back inside. And still, that thing was standing there, on the other side of the glass, motionless, watching, faceless, just darkness, where a human face should have been, swirling and empty. And yet I could feel its stare, like it was staring straight through me, like it knew everything, what I feared, what I remembered, what I regretted. I stumbled backward off the porch, nearly tripping over the steps. The street remained empty, too quiet, like the whole neighborhood had vanished. Every house pitch, dark. No lights, no movement, not a single soul awake but me. Then my phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look, but I did. Motion detected. Backyard camera. 2:19 a.m. I didn't have a backyard camera either. I opened the feed. What I saw nearly made me drop the phone again. The footage showed me. But not right now. It was from earlier. Just an hour ago. I was standing in the living room, asleep on the couch. Except I wasn't alone. The tall figure was behind me. The crouched one in the hallway. And the faceless one? It was sitting on the ceiling, like a spider, its head twisted upside down, watching me sleep. I watched the video in stunned silence as the faceless thing dropped silently to the floor beside my sleeping self. Then it leaned close, so close to my ear, though the camera had no sound. I knew it whispered something, and whatever it said, my sleeping body nodded. I froze. What? What did that mean? Had I already let them in? Suddenly the feed cut out. My screen went black. My phone died. Full battery just seconds ago. Then I heard it again. Knock, knock, knock. But not on the door this time. Behind me. I turned slowly. There, standing just a few feet away on the sidewalk, was me. Same clothes, same phone in hand, same stunned, terrified expression. But the eyes were black. And the smile was not mine. The last knock. I couldn't breathe. The thing standing on the sidewalk in front of me, it looked exactly like me, but it wasn't me. Its eyes were empty, black pits, and its smile stretched too wide, too wrong. Its face was a hollow mockery of mine, but its grin wasn't friendly. It was predatory. I took a step back. My legs were shaking. I wanted to run, but I couldn't move. It was as if my body had betrayed me, locked in place by some invisible force. The thing just stood there, mirroring me, unmoving, waiting. Knock. The sound wasn't coming from the door anymore. It was coming from the thing's mouth. That wide grin, stretching even further as it spoke again, mimicking my voice in a perfect eerie imitation. Let me in. I snapped out of my stupor and bolted for the side of the house. My mind was racing. There was no way this could be real. No way I was standing here talking to myself or to whatever that was. I turned the corner, desperately searching for some escape. And then I heard it. Footsteps. The same footsteps from before. Following me, close, echoing in the dead silence. But these weren't just any footsteps. They were too slow, too deliberate. It was as if something was making sure I could hear them, making sure I knew it was behind me. I turned around, expecting to see the figure following me, but there was nothing. Just the dark, empty yard. The backyard door was locked too. I couldn't go back in. I stumbled toward the front yard, desperate for an escape. The thing was still standing there, still watching, but it hadn't moved. Not yet. That's when I heard the voice again. Not from the thing outside, but from somewhere inside my head. A whisper, cold and unyielding, wrapping around my thoughts like a chain. You can't leave. I turned back toward the front door. The porch light flickered. The doorbell camera's little red light blinked again. Motion detected. I rushed back to the porch, phone shaking in my hand, and tapped the screen to open the live feed. It showed my front door, but it wasn't my front door anymore. The door was gone. The porch was gone. The house was gone. In place of the house was a void. Dark, endless, stretching out like a hole in reality. My doorbell cam was now recording the blackness. And there, standing in the center of that void, was the faceless thing, the same figure that had been in my house, the one with no face. It raised its hand, and then the feed cut out. I looked up. I was no longer standing on my porch. I was standing on the edge of the void. The thing was closer now, its hand reaching out toward me. We're home, it whispered again, its voice cold, dry, echoing in the blackness around us. The last thing I remember before everything went dark was a single slow knock. The end.